Hello guys and welcome back to the Dion Gaming channel. Last video we talked about the batariel, specifically. Today we're going to speak about the Lost Soul Spirit ship deck. Note, I will not have any of the old data because Pastebin got deleted by one of the staff from Pastebin. So basically, I will be using any new data from 252 hour window. Okay? However, you could still go to the Batariel Replay LSS to see some statistics, plus some surprise that will happen after the release of the game. Lost Soul Spirit ship. Depending on the variety of the deck that you choose to play, the LSS, which will be known as the Lost Spirit ship, can be easily and extremely easy to play and very effective on the map. Once again, just like the last video of Batariel, the Lost Spirit ship depends on the alternate version that you choose to play. And it can actually play kind of the same way as Batariel, depending on the version. There are a couple of versions, but two of the main are Lost Spirit ship only, and then again, the Lost Spirit ship with ground unit. However, there is one, which is the Lost Spirit ship with ground unit, which would be the pure deck that I'll cover at probably close to the end of the video. LS only revolve majority on the arcane spell, but just in case you still going with someone like an RPPE, you can still use spell cards. The LSS with ground unit actually revolves both on spells and arcane spells. To make sure that you're not getting confused about this, if you look at the bottom, at the middle left of the card, of any card, you'll see a for spell or the arcane. Spell requires ground presence. So if you don't have any ground unit, you can't activate the spell. You'll see a red circle. Arcane does not require that. You can use it anywhere on the map at any time. So as an example for a short list, let me say Regrowth, Equilibrium, Search of Light, Unholy Power, Unholy Hero are all arcane spells and doesn't require a ground unit. Anything like Curse of Oink, Cold Snap, Fire Spear, Frenetic Assault, Infect, and such requires a ground unit. If you don't have that, you can't activate those. Again, once again, look at the middle of the card, look to the left, you can see what is spell, S-P-E-L-L, or arcane. Let's continue. This video will take a little bit longer because we will cover the variation of the LSS deck. At the same time, I cover my last pure soul deck, which will be on the last video, which is one of the deck that I actually been promoted. You can see the others and replay the first video that I actually posted, so you can see how much it has been increased. And you technically can still watch some of the action of that in the Batariel and Replay LSS, Batariel and LSS Replay Part 1 and Part 2, and at the same time separately in a bunch of other videos, which I'm going to copy paste some of the videos names plus the time link of those videos. Alright? Lost Spirit ship and its ability. Although few to none ever uses this, and the only reason I'm saying this is because I play 17 hours a day, and those that I have seen have never used it. And the reason why they will never use the recycle ability or the Remnant Doom is because they usually play with a splash deck, which includes green, and that has a lot of heals. Again, using the recycle does not require using the recycle does require you to have a slot of a tower inside of it. Either way, I will go over the ability so that if you actually play this deck, you choose which version you want to play. We're going to go for the Lost Spirit info, and I want to make it short and sweet. First of all, the Gifted Crystal materialized. You can't repair it or anything like that. It'll start healing for 250 points. I'm not sure if it upgrade increases it. I didn't even look for it right now. But anyway, it'll heal for 250, and it will damage the enemy in the 25 radius for 300 damage. Okay? It requires about 1,500 life points to activate. This infused crystal will be the same material coming down, but it doesn't heal. It still does damage, but at the same time, anything they summon during that radius of 25 will not be dazed. So the monster will not come with half health, and they will not become to reduce damage when they actually come dazed. You know, torpedo gun is every 2 seconds. A turret shoots independently, dealing 115 damage to enemies in a 15 radius, and its target up to 140 in total each. Knocks back small and medium units. The recycle, you just activated it and it destroys any type of building. Ami doesn't restore monument or power wells or anything you actually place in the field, or you know, anything that you construct. You can have a maximum of a recycle of 6,000 life points. So you already know that if you actually recycle 4 of them, You'll be 4 times of a building that gets you up to the 6,000 life points. You'll be able to use the ability 4 times. Either Gift Crystal or Infuse Crystal. Infuse Crystal is like 0. Gift Crystal, I have been using it. So, again. Remnant Doom, you actually activate it, and when they die, they come back and the rest. They have the same strength or anything like that. After 25 seconds, the Remnant goes die permanently, and it won't come to rest again. You can actually look at some of the wiki area, so you can see some of the counters for it. And you counter buy, so you can actually learn a little bit more about the LSS. Like again, counter buy, LSS is extremely fast, killing by the masses, and primarily targets the S and M enemies from random maps. But it has a particular weakness against the occasional boss, which are typically L and XL units that can hit air. And again, against which it does much less damage because only 2 targets are engaging them. So, and also they have less HP. They only have like a 3,000 something HP. So they're very, very weakness against boss. But again, you're going to be having Revenge, Equilibrium, Regrowth, and all that to support you. It has a weakness against the air superiority cards, anti-air cards, large units, and XL units. There has a combo right here for you guys as well, which it says cheap high HP building to sacrifice to activate its lost crystal ability. Juice Tank offer an unusually low 1:33 ratio of the cost of HP while being almost exactly 1,400 HP. And then Bowman's Shrine only costing 30 for the cost of 1,032, which is even lower. The one that I'm going to be using in the video is obviously Armor Tower, which has one time in August a use of 238, which was all me, because that's the only time that I use my abilities for my Lost Soul Pure deck. I think it's cheap. It's only 80 cost, with Construction HUD is like 60 card for something about 3,000 something HP, which literally gives you 6,000 life to the recycle, only 2. So basically, you only have to recycle 2 times. So that's pretty much it about that. Now that that is actually covered, let us work on the variation of decks, starting with all Lost Spirit ship. We will be using the launcher.exe to get all the cards and to test these, where basically that's where I mainly test things and started the cards. Obviously, it's not something you're supposed to be using for that. It's supposed to be used for testing, but again, I'm going to use it for that. Before we actually enter, I want to show you this picture, because obviously if I actually go back to another picture right here, this is actually one of the videos called the last community map. I'm pretty sure I gave the timestamp that you can actually probably watch it, not sure, but either way, this is actually BG10 LSS, which the guy actually entered the RPVE battleground, RPVE 9, and started using this type of deck. But I will cover this deck, and to my definition, or should I say interpretation, I'll tell you what pretty much the person is doing. So let me actually just go right here into one of the pictures that I put them all together from the video. And then as you can see, he only has 2, not 4 charges. He does have the red one and the green one. He has Fire Crystal, and what that does is technically gives the Lost Spirit anything that is a red affinity, and there's a Lost Spirit with a red affinity. It gives them the ability like Rage. The longer they attack, the stronger they get. If they stop attacking for 10 seconds, again, it reverts back to normal. So obviously the Spirit Ship, even walking away, does attack. So you technically can kite and all that stuff. So he does have 4 of the important one, which is the red, and 2 of the green one, because he's pretty much going all there with Lost Spirit Ship. No ground units on this deck. He has Unholy Hero, which I'm sure he's going to use it on the Lost Spirit Ship on the left, or maybe on his partner. Has Regrowth to heal. Has Curse of Void, which Curse of Void, Frenetic Assault, and Matter Mastery, and all of these require ground presence. But again, he might have a partner that has a ground unit presence, and you do basically have 2 on the left, 2 on the right. And with that, he probably used the Matter Mastery and then probably the Recycle to destroy it, or majority of the time he won't do the Recycle. He'll just pretty much use the ability of the tower to help him fight. He again, Frenetic Assault makes the units fight amongst each other. So, you know, that's right there. That's a spell, so you'll be needing ground presence. He has Furnace, which basically he's going to get his power back. And because I don't see Shrine in here, Shrine of War, I am guessing that he's going to be micromanaging. He's going to be using the Cultist Master into the Furnace to get the power back. He does starts with Forsaken. Some people actually starts with the Nox Troopers, And the reason they do that is because the majority of what they're using a non-stripper and they use motivator are helping each other. But again, if you find some other people who are actually using Forsaken and they use motivator, it's also going to help his Forsaken get 50% damage. You also use slow splice, same as my other video. If you look at LS replay part 1, part 2, or the normal one, you'll see that in the RPVE, I use the soul splicers to heal. Heals Involvement and Shadow. Shadow is a card that I'm going to cover on the next video, which again clears everything you want to be clearing. He uses Rifle Cultist and Offering, and the reason that is because when you summon the Rifle Cultist and you use the Offering, the green affinity one, that will be the amount of orb he has here. He'll get charges back, so he'll be able to spend again Lost Spirit Ship without wearing the cooldown of it, which is half of the cost if he loses all the charges. He has resource boosters, and I'm pretty sure he's going to do Shadow, that may be Frost and Nature, or Shadow, Nature, Frost, either way. And he has, again, down here, he has Incredible Mode, and he can use the debuff one, but I'm positive he's going to be using the meta one, the Insidious Mode, which will give him reduced damage by 20%. If someone else has Will of Gift, that would another 20%, which would be 40%. And the Will of Gift also has one for 20% damage. So again, he's using. I'm pretty sure he's using the Cities Mo ability. He has that's pretty much it. And we're actually going to go in and we're going to show you this in action, because be aware that all these are being played in a specific matter. First, he actually goes for Forsakens, then he goes Involvement, for Shadow Phoenix, then again he probably go Breeding Ground onto it. If he feels that he can get the third with just the Shadow Phoenix, like let's say that has Skyfall Angel, he can still use the Cultist Master and stuff. He doesn't have Equilibrium, which there's a combo with that with the Cultist Master, which I use it on my Nature Frost Shadow deck, but again he still should be able to clear it. Gets to the end of the map, summons a Breeding Ground. When he does summon the Breeding Ground, he summons his ships. He does use the Rifle Cultist in Offering close to the Furnace, so he it still goes back to his main power pool. It doesn't really matter. Once he has a Cultist Master, that'll be feeding into the Furnace, and what happens that is that the Void power goes back into the actual power. And because Cultist Master summons a bunch of them, you don't even have to do the math. Just summon 3 of them, and automatically you're going to get all that Void power back into the main power pool during the time that he's using RPVE. So after that, you know, he's pretty much using everything efficiency. Rifle Cultist next to the Breeding Ground, Furnace for after you use it, Offering on the Rifle Cultist. Some of the Lost Spirit Ship next to the Breeding Ground, again lost cost, and then he goes out there and start fighting with his partner. So I had a little problem with the launch .txt, but it's all fixed right now. Actually, I went to watch a movie and I came back, so I'm actually going to get into it right now. I had to delete the other ones, but again, this is actually the launcher.exe. This is actually when I can test decks, and I actually study most of the cards in the deck and so on. You can get free boosters and all that right here, so long as I enter a game and read right out of it. It says test right here. So again, all of them are upgraded to 3, so all the information, this will be everything about the upgrade to 3, as you see right here. Plus whatever right here, when you see the gift of crystal being 50 more damage, 5 more duration, blah blah blah, and then the 5 duration again. So let's actually start with one other thing that actually put this crystal. When you actually summon this flame crystals, which actually does it right here, the infinity, anything they have to fire infinity decur in the game will deal increasingly more damage the longer it attacks, but falls back into the original damage output. It doesn't, if it doesn't actually fight for 10 seconds. So you may have seen someone like that, like Fire Dragon and so on, basically gives them that type of ability. So majority of the times you're actually fighting, just like you saw in the other deck, you saw the other guys had actually 4. Majority of the time you will be summoning more this ship than the other ship, but again, sometimes you just can't be doing Offering and Rifle Cultist all the time. So I'm sure they are going to be putting some of the other ships inside of it. It's going to be a full ship and anything like that. So I'm just going to put like a really good amount of ships, and then I'm actually close this down right here, and then this is what basically happened. You have everything that you see on the bottom is not from T1 or anything like that. It's just me trying to show you some of the spells, some of the cards are going to be more effective to it and such. So as for example, if you actually fight a abomination, you actually have to be quite careful, because these ships only has about 3,930 life. So most of the times, you saw the other guy using it on his deck, but sometimes you might want to need something like this, a Revenge, which again will reduce the damage by 70%. We did. I'll read it right here. All friendly entities in 25 radius takes only 70% damage, offering all of the remaining damage to an enemy unit, not a friendly unit like unholy, the holy hero or the life weaving that you use like in the batariel deck and stuff like that. So if you were to, for example, fight these creatures right now, and they're actually going to be going after the crystal. I have to be very careful to see if I can save it. I'm not sure if it is. Yeah, it is. But anyway, you're gonna see it that it does hit very hard as I'm kiting right now. And look, it's gonna. If I didn't use the equilibrium, I probably would have actually killed it on the last seconds. Not quite sure, but anyway, they hit very hard. So one of the things that people may actually hate to like speedrun and stuff like that, they may actually hate that these guys can kite everything around and such, and then more power when you actually use the flame crystal. So majority of the time, if you're actually using the deck that is all Lost Spirit ship, then majority of the time as you see it like this, you're obviously going to be using the Lost Crystal right there with the effect, and then you probably can use Revenge. You see them taking mad damage, but Revenge, Regrowth, and you don't actually quite worry. No matter how much they actually summon, so long as you have Revenge and Regrowth, as you see it's taking a couple of damage and so on, then I use Regrowth, and if I want to, I can still use Equilibrium to actually keep them up in the heals and so on. Majority of the time, if I don't have anybody next to me, all the Lost Spirit ship can be able to do is the arcane spells. And again, you actually saw an explanation how what is arcane spells and what spells during the beginning of this type of video. So that's one of the things is happening is these are fire affinity, so they're very much stronger when they use with the fire crystal, and that's something that people use. Another thing is right here is that when you have ground units in either yourself or with your partner RPVE, or maybe sometimes you maybe have it in 2-4 map and stuff like that, and you have a partner with you and stuff like and such, you can use the spells in bottom. Otherwise you use the one with a ground unit. It doesn't really matter which ground unit you used in the like for example, I can actually go ahead and summon the Rifle Cold Smasher just so I can use the spell and so on. But if you are in RPVE, it's just better than to use a extra large unit like Overlord or the Bloodhorn, and I'll explain that more later. But anyway, let me actually just go right here, change this up, and summon a tower, for example. Okay. So the tower is if I move forward, it will damage it and so on. But if I actually have a ground unit, you can use anything on this specific area. Do not know why they have it like that, but you can use anything in here. But you need a ground unit to be able to use the Matter Mastery because it's a spell. So you actually take it over. That's something that happens majority of the time that I actually seen this ever. Would be and I have used this by the way on my Nature Frost Shadow deck, but the only time I ever see people actually doing this ever is while they keep it actually the tower alive. So if it's a Wild Sapper, it's working for you. If it is a cannon, a bombarder or something like that, it will work for you. But I've never seen anybody come over real quickly and try to recycle it. I would if the tower lives, but again, I would love to have a Wild Sapper to use against my enemy if I was in the Twilight on the RPVE. So that's something that they use, which I already showed you on the beginning what that person would do. Again, the spell really that you use for support will depend on the type of deck you're making, starting with your T1 and so on. If you're actually using an RPVE, you'll notice that the T1 is basically Shadow. And the reason that is because some people like to go for the first Shadow. They actually do either use the Forsaken or the Nox Trooper. They move into the second Shadow, which is the Shadow Phoenix, which with the Embalmer, which again is going to be on the next video and so on. And that actually clears everything out. You can actually look at some of the videos in the as a replay from part 1, part 2 to see how they actually clear out and so on. But again, after that, they have Resource Booster, and then they use that all on their power wells to actually get massive amount of fast power. If you actually look right here and you type Resource Booster, it says own power, and this is up to 3 by the way. Own power wells in a 20 radius will produce 35% more power, but it will also consume 200% power. But that's not going to matter. You're supposed to be finishing even before well down. So usually you finish the map. So anyway, they get into that point, and then after that, they either go nature, so in case something happens, they still can use breeding ground and stuff, and other things like equilibrium, which is green. If you actually look over here, is T3. And another thing after that will be the ice, which again will summon the Lost Spirit ship. So in that order, basically, you will have Shadow, Nature Frost, and that will be majorly for the RPVE. If you're actually using something that is on fire or anything like that, like a fire affinity, and you're not going to use the resource booster and stuff like that, majority of the time you will use the Shrine of War. So I actually want to talk about this very quickly. If you're not using fire for the Shrine of War, you are going to do a little micromanagement, and the only thing basically you'll be doing is that when you summon the, for example, for Cultist Master, look what the furnace does. Gather all corpse within a 25 radius in order to recycle them and take 5% of the former life to maximum life point from the void power to return into the actual power pool. But basically, you'll have a number over here when you separate these Cultist Master. I have my Z, which will use their ability on Z and stuff like that. So after that, I actually double click on this right here to make sure that I'm targeting the ends. I keybind it to this type of death. So you have to technically click it twice to destroy a unit, which I do. And basically that is where it's fitting the furnace, and that actually is going to allow you to get those 90% of the cost of the power from the void power into the power pool. What basically means is that when you use something like Frenetic Assault, Unholy Power, or let's say I use Regrowth, 90% of that is going to the void power and slowly into your power pool. Basically, when you actually use the Cult Master, 5% of that, of the maximum life of these creatures, which is a lot of them if you actually do the math onto it. Look how many life these creatures has. It has about 745, so 5% of that for 9 of them, I think, right? No, for 12 of them. Okay, good. We'll go into the furnace, and that will also give you your void power into the actual power pool. So that's something you might do if you're actually using the furnace for 2 Shadow. If you're actually not using 2 Shadow, you basically will be summoning 2 of the shrines, and then the shrine says whenever an enemy gets killed, 20% of the current void power will be added to the actual power pool. So that's if you have 300 or something like that, and you do 20% and you actually kill a bunch of them. So again, 20%, 40%, 60%, because again, you're killing all these things, giving you a bunch of 20%. So it's very much easy. Once the happens, you wait 60 seconds, and then you actually activate one, and then by the time that it finished, you can actually activate the other one, because you can't activate the same one. It actually has a longer cooldown. So you can alternate between these two and keep having power, so you'll be able to actually clear the map with all the spells if you're using, again, between the all Lost Spirit ship or Lost Spirit ship with ground units. But however, this actually does concur to something that will happen when you actually choose your ground unit if you're not playing all Lost Spirit ship. So let's say you're actually going with Lost Spirit ship. For some reason, let's say you're doing Lost Spirit ship here, red affinity, because you probably want the flame first or stuff like that, and you want some ground units. Majority of the time, you still can play off Lost Spirit ship, both of these guys. It's just that you'll have like at least a ground unit to use these spells in the bottom, just in case one of your partners like leaves, or if you're doing a campaign in the map. The problem is with the setup is that you might go, again, if you're going Frost Shadow to actually summon them, and you go Nature, then you have one left over. And if you're choosing Shadow, then you can go into the family of using Frenetic Assault, Effet, and so on. If you're not doing that, then again, you can actually go to the family of like Earthquake. I think I should put right here, Earthshaker, I think is actually called Earthshaker or Earthquake. Earthshaker. Which if I actually grab it, if I actually grab it down here, I can actually use Earthshaker, and it does damage to structure. So at a point, you can actually start killing some of the buildings, anything that's pretty much buildings, you know. And it does knock back, I think, some specific unit like medium, small, medium, and large, and so on. You can read it right up here. There's also some damage into. So if you actually go into that family, for example, if you go to Shadow, Frost, Nature, then again you actually can use the Overlord. Again, it's 2 Shadow. Sorry about that. It's 2 Shadow right here to use Overlords, which you'll still be able to have green, Nature, and Frost, which is blue. And during this time, I actually prefer always working with the Overlord. I feel like they're the best tank. Again, look, you can read their effect. They can actually transfer 1,000 life of their own life to a 15-minute radius of a friendly unit, or gather nearby corpses to regenerate 450 life. To actually explain that, is I'm actually going to summon one of them, and he's actually going to whoop the living crap really hard on these guys. So I'm actually going to be able to actually use Revenge, so yeah, so they can actually kind of live in here. And I'm also going to be using Unholy, but I'm not using them for technically attack. They work great when you summon a bunch of them and stuff like that, but that's not the reason why I technically using them. The reason I'm using them is because, again, look, they heal from corpses. So while your ship ships are all around killing everything for you, they're actually technically healing while walking with the ships, because everything is being absorbed within 450 life every 3 seconds and so on. So having 2 of them is actually quite fun to have while you actually use, again, Infet or Frenetic Assault and so on. So another thing is, if you're not using the Overlord and you're actually going for the fire for the shrine and stuff like that, I mean, you can technically still use the Overlord. It's just that you have to switch your monument back to double shadow and so on, which most people will not like, switching the monument back and forward and stuff like that. But if you are one of those people who really don't want to switch your monument back to shadow, you know, to summon the Overlord or anything like that, you technically can summon Bloodhorn. The only thing I don't like it is that when I actually was in the map, they feel like they tend to die a little bit much quicker. They do have more life than the other one. It's just that you have to actually heal them with your support unit. Like the guy didn't have Revenge, but you can actually have Revenge for 70% of damage, again, Equilibrium, and again, Regrowth to fight. The only cool things about these Bloodhorn is that when you use the ability to take half of the health and stuff like that, but this damage, it becomes 100%. So again, let me actually show you one of the ability, which please move back. He's gonna try to kill it and so on. Basically, it still would have killed it anyway, but using this ability, basically you can actually ram things to structures like camps and so on. The only thing I don't like about that is that I might move away from my ships and so on. So I have to actually keep my ships ahead of them and then run and try to rush through. That way, so they don't die alone in case there's a bunch of creatures that hit a good amount of damage and so on. However, when they're actually facing against an Abomination, for example, the Abomination is going to use that same goddamn ability that doesn't allow them attack. So that's okay, that's fine. However, when they use their ability and they go into half health, like right there, and then I start healing them, they actually gonna deal 100% of their damage to Abomination, literally killing him in 2 shots. However, again, he does have 50% life, but again, it's an XL damage. So they actually do 50% more damage, and if you do the ability, they'll do 100%, so 150% if you actually has with both of them. So that's something you want to keep in mind in case you actually want to go with that. And the reason people want to go with that is because some people don't like micromanaging with the Cultic Master the Furnace, and they like to go with the Shrine of Warm, which they feel is much easier. I will show my deck for the Warlord, but I really want to talk about that right now real quickly, which is this one. Warlord versus the Overlord. Let me tell you right now, Warlord is better than Overlord in the tanking mechanism. Yes, Warlord seems to have XL damage, also has 5,760 damage, and it has a little bit more health than him, about 1,820 more, but again, that's all he does. Majority of the time, I haven't even used much of his ability. Yes, I have used it some here and there, but not much of his ability, which needs a ground presence to even use it. It can't, and like there's a monster down there, and I can teleport like this. Any monster that I can teleport, I need this guy to get even close to him. Okay, give me a second, because I don't have the way to control them both separately like that. So in order for him to actually use his ability to be able to hit with 50% damage, and I don't like the animation that he has to go there, then turn around or look around to find their opponent and then start hitting for 50%, and it's not long enough to really matter. So I rather use, for example, I rather use red, which I am right now, Lost War Red, and use Fire Crystal and just boost his damage that way. That's better than using his ability. However, Warlord is definitely much better than the Lost Sword, and that's the reason why many people have not played with the Lost Sword Warlord. Instead, they have been playing a lot with the Overlord because it is 2 shadow and 2 neutral. That's one thing I wanted to keep in mind. However, because I do play with the Lost Soul deck, and I do love Lost Evocation and so on, and I can still use the Fire Crystal with Lost Evocation. Lost Evocation is the one that gives you 50% reduced damage to all the Revenants out there, the Lost Souls, or 50% more damage. And since I'm playing the theme, I am going to boost with that. I have 2 decks, however, that I want to show. Thank you, sweetheart. Sorry, this is actually steak, by the way, with Montreal seasoning, mashed potato, and sweet. Sorry about that. Tastes delicious. Anyway, I do want to get to the last 2 decks, and I will try to put. It'll take me a bit. I'll try to put some Federation at the bottom, but this is what you have to know about. Lost Spirit Ship, a Fire Crystal, Flame Crystal, and such. and then you actually pick what you want. Again, Curse of Owen, Cold Snap, Maelstrom, whatever type of support you feel is better for you. Alright, let's just stop the video right there. This is the one that I actually use. Again, I do start when I start down here. Do start with Nos Trooper. Do start with the Soul Splicer. Same thing with the Involvement and Shadow Phoenix. I do have Motivate, just in case someone else is using Nos Trooper, but again, some people may have Forsaken. Same thing with the Resource Booster. However, I have Construction Hut, and that's to reduce the cost and increase the speed of the Hammer Tower. So, and then the ships will go in basically and start sucking these things up. You know? So they'll cost me 60 instead of 80 because of the Construction Hut. You know? They'll suck up all these things. Again, they have a cooldown when they use their ability. So there it is. You know? And then when I'm actually fighting something, for example, let me summon an Abomination over here. Not gonna be really much damage, but actually put it right here. When I have it fighting something, again, I use the Spirit Ship. Now, again, I'm being healed. And so on. And if I feel like I'm threatened or something like that, like right now, if I feel like a threatened, I can actually move it a bit. Okay, it's gonna hit this ship instead, and I'm still gonna be able to. Sorry about that, hiccup. I'm still gonna be able to heal. I actually use the Architect's Call, and then I actually sometimes use both of them, but I rather use this one because it's in place 20 friendly building placed within the 20 radius by 50%. It actually additional enemy within it will be weakened and deal 30% less damage if I were using this thing inside of it. So that's the reason why I use the purple one. But again, both of them, if you look at the statistics, both of them has been used since the time that I've been explaining this to committed players inside the game. What happened is it says 50%. It will not reduce the construction ability, but again, when you use it inside of it, it's going to increase it by 50%. Just like construction, it's just that you will not have the 25% less. However, I use this, and then I basically use the Lost Spirit Ship when I have run out of heals and so on. The next is actually Nether Warp, and I actually technically use this in a way, and I'm actually just show you right now. I don't know why you appeared, but whatever. Actually die. And then summon this one right here. Then I'm gonna use the tower. Alright. So one of the things I do is, again, I am not a pro or anything like that, and don't give a crap about that either. However, when I see something like this, like let's say I see 2 Abominations and stuff like that, I will use my ships to move here, like right on top of them, use the ability, and then I touch my 2 dragons and start hitting anything that is more troublesome. So again, my dragon will hit the Wrathgazer, will hit the White Sniper, or anything that has an ability that is much stronger. And this is what it actually does with these guys. For example, if I actually summon, let me just go ahead and summon a Construct right here. A Construct. And I actually summon this one, and I have a Lost Warden. I'm actually going to go ahead, try to go ahead and forward, move these guys because he's actually going to be enraged to actually hit me. Then actually going to be hitting him with the Lost Dragon, and look, he can't use his ability, he can't use range or anything like that, so that's what I use with my Lost Dragon. I start shutting down buildings and stuff. For example, if I actually summon it right here, a building, and I'm making it my enemy and stuff like that, then if I summon it right here, you will see that the building is going to attack me. So I then summon a Lost Warden, sorry, a Lost Dragon, which only costs about 40 Battle Force point, really nice. And then the building is now shut down, and they can't use the ability or anything like that. So that's the reason why I do that. Again, I do have Infect, I do have Friend Assault. It is both Shadow cards and stuff like that. I do have Soul Shatter, just in case something happens. Sometimes, believe it or not, I do get to a point of area where I don't have my units to the 3rd, like for like Cultist Masters and so on. And then you see creatures like this, which basically I fight with them, but I try to stay away from the area of that damage, which is the Soul Shatter and so on. After that, I have the Lost Soul Red Invocation. I do not use the blue one. The Lost Soul Red Invocation will increase the Remnant units by 50% damage, meaning my Lost Soul Dragon, my Lost Warden, and my Lost Soul ships are going to have a 50% increase of damage. Okay. Now, in the RPV, I never used the Ami Monument in there, so I do not know why I actually have it. However, Nah, okay. I feel like there might be a problem with the third orb or anything like that, but I never had a problem to use it. I just keep it there out of, what do we call it, paranoia, where I feel like the guy will not let me share his orb to get to the next area. But I haven't had any trouble so far, so I might be changing the enemy monument for something else. Hell, I might even use the Lost Evocation blue to have 50% reduced damage, and the red to have the increase of damage and so on. Now I actually want to go right ahead and jump into a version, because again, it's the same version of it. This is the Lost Sinner deck. There's two versions where either I use the Lost Dancer or I use the Embalmment, but again, I wanted to go pure, so that's the reason why I go Embalmment. I have all these cards like Frost Mace, Master Archer, Axe Barrier, Home Soil, all that. I do lose the Lost Launcher because they're actually great, and this is actually for the technical campaign. I use RPVE for the RPVE, and this is for the campaign. This is called Sinner, and I have another one called Sinner too, and so on. And depends on how I use them, I may change it, and so on. For example, if I go back into the Sinner 2, Sinner Clone, actually, is it Sinner Clone? Actually, Sinner Clone does have the Necroblaster for defense, but there was another one in here, Sinner Emball or something like that. There it is, Sinner Emball, where I actually use the Stone of Torment and the launcher, and again I have the Embalmment with the Shadow Phoenix. It really, I can choose it around depending on how I actually feel for the map and so on. But I have finished majority of the map with the first Sinner deck. Now, lastly, what I actually want to do is I want to go right ahead and show you the which I call my FNS deck, and again I can actually alternate it any way I want to. I do use the Shamans and Mana Wing. I did start with the Wind Reaver. I do use the Crystal Fiend and Aggressor, and the reason why sometimes I never feel fear about, you know, getting to tier 3 or anything like that is because the Aggressor with a lot of Shamans just feels really strong. So for example, if I were to, I never fought an Abomination, of course. I fought a Grinder in the, what is it called? The, in the Bat Harvester and so on. But again, I can press F, keep my units standing by. And depending how many Shamans I actually put, again, when they start hitting them like this, and I have to keep the Shaman away from him, because look, he's actually dealing damage to my Shaman too. I have to be very careful. Again, the Shamans start healing him. The Stone Skin takes 50% less damage and so on. And if I keep my Shaman out of there without getting hit and so on, they can actually take the Abomination alone. The 6 Shaman and 6 Aggressor. That's why I never actually have to worry about tier 3, but I do have a tier 3, which is the Cultist Master. However, just in case someone actually used the Ami, I either can use the Cultist Master or a bunch of Aggressors and the Crystal Fiend. And I didn't use the Crystal Fiend, which reduces it by 20%. So that's one other thing I want you to keep in mind. This is actually my Nature, Frost, Shadow, and again, I can go either way. I can go as Father Nature, Shadow, or reverse Shadow Nature, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But again, in this specific deck, I actually don't know why. I actually have Cannon Tower, but I like using the Storm Hurler. However, I actually use the Cannon Tower for a specific map. That's why I keep changing it back and forth and so on. But again, this is one of my favorite things that I love doing when getting to another area. Let's say somebody has the Enemy Monument, and now I actually have to fight to get to the next area. I summon the Breeding Pool, Breeding Grounds, and so on. And then I use the Cultist Master's ability. For example, let's actually fight this many, right? I think that was a mistake. However, let's actually use the Cultist Master's ability. And then you know that two of the ability in there, for example, is tier 3. So Equilibrium is one of them. So that allows me to actually fight them with them. And 2, at the same time, there is the Revenge that I can add into this deck because I had it before. Cannon Tower took its place or anything like that in a defense map or anything like that. But I can actually use Revenge and Cannon Tower because both of those, actually, if you go right here and you type Revenge, Revenge is actually a tier 3, one green, and so on. So that sounds something like that. But again, when I actually go ahead and start fighting with the Lost Spirit ship, I do use the Armor Tower. And the reason that is what's actually stronger than having the Lost Spirit ship's ability fully, all 4 of them, at the field at the same time with a Revenge and a Regrowth. Now, I can't show it in this video. It's very long or something like that, but you technically feel very invincible. So maybe on another type of video, on the next video or something like that, I'll make it as an example that I show through other things or again, you can actually look at the Lost Spirits ships being using on some of the other videos that I had or the video that I posted. But then maybe in the next video I'll start putting examples and stuff like that so you can actually see it. But again, this is the type of one that I do with Giant Worm. So technically I will have 4 Giant Worm, 4 Lost Spirit ship. The Lost Spirit ship will then drop the when I have Armor Tower. Do not know what I have. I don't have it here, but again, I would have it in place for the Cannon Tower right here. So in place for the Cannon Tower, I will have Armor Tower. So again, I have it like this or anything like that. I will have it like this, and basically when fighting, it uses that ability, which I'm going to use it right now, and then I will activate Revenge on top of him, and then Regrowth. It feels invincible when you have that in here. So that's one of the reasons probably why they also try to nerf it. And I wanted to actually end this video. If you have any type of question for this type of decks or anything like that, please comment below, or find me on Discord, which is Dion #3664. Alright, and have a wonderful day. I'm going to eat this steak.